Hi guys, today we're going to review the new Alienware X17 R1 from the X series lineup. Featuring an ultra-thin form factor, comprises of a quad fan design and having the Element 31, a gallium silicon liquid metal compound. So let's take a deep dive into it. My laptop unit consists of an RTX 3080 GPU with 16GB GDDR6 memory, maximum graphics power of 165 watts, 11th Gen Intel Core i7, 16GB of RAM, 512GB of SSD storage, and 4K display panel with 120Hz refresh rate. For the network connectivity, it has an Ethernet port, Killer Wi-Fi 6E, and Bluetooth version 5.2. This configuration is balanced for gaming and productivity. I prefer the Intel i7 for my CPU rather than the i9 to balance thermal and performance. I chose the minimum for options that can be replaced, which is much cheaper if you're going to upgrade it yourself. This device is slightly thinner compared to the previous M17 laptops. The bezel thickness is about 8.1mm. The laptop weighs about 3.02 kg and 4.52 kg with a power adapter. This is a seriously massive and heavy power adapter for a laptop compared to other chargers. If you're planning to bring this laptop on the go, you may opt for the RTX 3070 configuration, which has a slimmer 240 watts adapter. This Alienware laptop has the new Legend 2.0 design. I personally like the dark core interior for reducing screen reflections while retaining the lunar light exterior that really stand out. It can be opened using one hand with none too little movement. You can customize all the RGB lighting inside the Alienware Command Center under Alien Effects tab. They upgraded the stadium lighting at the back, which now has 100 micro LEDs. The Alien Effects comes with presets. The default thin keyboard with perky Alien Effects lighting is still impressive, and typing experience feels great. They skipped the numpad keys, which is a bit disappointing. I find it useful for so many tasks, and I'm comfortable typing numbers on one hand. I hope Dell would still consider including it on their next release version. The keyboard layout is the same from M15 R5 and R6. Onto the glass touchpad, it's a bit smaller compared to M17 R4. You will have the Alien Effects RGB touchpad for RTX 3080 configuration only. I don't like the slight hinge around the touchpad though, which feels kind of an unfinished touch. Moving on to the display, the 4K screen is crisp and vibrant, with 500 nits of luminance and 100% Adobe RGB. Currently, there is no MUX switch or option to disable Optimus to connect the panel directly to the dedicated GPU. However, connecting an external monitor via HDMI or mini DisplayPort will bypass the integrated GPU. For the camera, it has the usual 720p HD webcam. Nothing special. Beside it, there are two microphones, two infrared emitter, and one infrared camera for Windows Hello Face authentication. Available ports are trimmed down to a bare minimum. For the right side, it contains the headset port. I don't like the charging port on the left side. Should probably be retained at the back. Okay, so here we have two USB Type-A's, one Type-C, a Thunderbolt 4.0, Ethernet port, HDMI port, micro SD slot, and a mini display port. They dispose of the graphics amplifier port and discontinued the external GPU for their gaming laptops. The placement of all the USB ports at the back is also a letdown. Ports that are regularly used should be easily accessible. For this, I suggest to have a cooling pad that includes USB ports or buy a separate USB hub. For the speakers, we have two front-facing left and right tweeter speaker and two woofer speaker at the bottom. This is how it sounds. For the battery life, at 50% brightness and 60Hz refresh rate, it can last for about 3 hours while playing YouTube. However, gaming at 120Hz refresh rate, it can only last for about 1 hour 45 minutes playing Witcher 3 on Ultra, which is typical for an Alienware gaming laptop with a 4K screen. If you want to extend the battery life, you may do some undervolting using Intel XTU or throttle stop. For the air exhaust, there are plenty of air vents from the side, back, and at the keyboard. You can select from the 5 power states for the quad fan inside the Alienware command center. The combination of the quad fan and Element 31 thermal compound really shows an improvement in cooling performance, which gives a headroom for GPU overclocking. I've been using this laptop for more than a week now, and have never experienced thermal throttling while gaming or day-to-day use. For the internals, it's great that both RAM and storage are upgradable. Wi-Fi card on the other hand is soldered. That I find acceptable, since it already have the latest Wi-Fi version and probably won't be needing an upgrade for a couple of years. Both of the two SSD slots are capable of running PCIe Gen 4 NVMe SSDs. So the motherboard, as expected, is still upside down. So if you're planning to do a thermal repaste and aren't comfortable doing it, better to let the professionals handle it for you. For the CPU benchmark, I use Cinebench R20. TCC offset is set to 0. For the GPU, we use Overclock Profile 2, Thermal and Power are set to Performance mode. Here are the TimeSpy and Firestrike results. It hits the average score for the same setup we have. We managed to test some games, and here are the list of average FPS using different resolutions on Ultra settings. Average GPU temp is at around 70 degrees Celsius. Also note that this laptop is running with a high density RAM, so replacing it with a low density would probably gain 10 to 15% improvement. I will run through another test and compare after I upgrade mine on my next video. Currently, there are 3 display options available for the Alienware X17. The basic 1080p 165Hz, 1080p 360Hz, and the 4K 120Hz. Only the 360Hz has the advanced Optimus and G-Sync, so you're probably best left with the 2 latter options. This will come down to personal preference and priorities. If you're a competitive gamer playing first-person shooter games which needs a high refresh rate, or those who wants a laptop with battery that will last long, clearly the 360Hz panel is for you. But if most of the time you only play single-player RPGs and enjoy clarity and extra detail, go for the 4K display, which is also great for video and photo editing. Sure, you won't get higher frame rate on a 4K, but there's always an option to scale it down to 1440p or even 1080p to maximize the refresh rate. Finally, if your only main concern is portability, I suggest you go for the X15, but you are definitely going to sacrifice the graphics power. To wrap it up, I can say that the Alienware X17 did a good job in keeping the thermals low, but may perform better if they did not focus on making it slim. Not to mention, it's still pretty heavy. The design is aesthetically pleasing, but with some compromises. Lack of numpad, no USB ports on the sides, and below average battery life. At the end of the day, we're only looking at the R1 version. They must always leave room for improvements for the next versions to come. Well, there you guys have it. Hope this video helped you in any way. Let me know your thoughts, comments, suggestions, and requests down below. Please like and subscribe, and see you on my next videos.